And today is going to be something a little different, but similar to past streams, doing some web dev stuff. This time, I think I mentioned kind of a video processing thing that I was looking at doing with Django, which sounds weird now that I say that like that. Not really doing the video processing with Django, but making an app to manage. Something that I honestly don't spend a lot of time on, but why would I spend time on something when I could spend even more time coding to not do the thing? Anyway, yeah. So this is a project that I've been working on a little bit, trying to figure out what I want to actually do with it, and so instead of diving directly into the Django part of this, there's kind of a side detour that I want to do because I want. Actually, let me do this. So it's not anything all too impressive. Yeah, do I have Docker running? There we go. Bring that over here. So I have a Django app set up with Postgres and Redis and Celery to kind of manage doing some like asynchronous like video processing stuff, and I think should be able to go to, is it 8,000 or 3,000? I don't remember. Here we go. So the app as it is, it's just the Django admin. If you don't know what Django is a web application framework that came out a while ago, kind of I think after Rails, but kind of in that era. So it's definitely it feels like a kind of a batteries included web application framework centered around using Python. So it's implemented in Python. You create your views for your pages in Python, but one of the things that comes out of the box with it is a administration UI. And I mean that's really the only thing I'm taking advantage of here with Django is just like the having a UI and being able to define models for database tables, right? So this is just a CRUD UI on top of a database. But one of the things that the Django admin has is you're able to extend it. And for instance, I think if we look in, is it videos, right? So we can select. So here's a record that represents the coding stream from a few weeks ago, and then I have some custom actions like extract speech audio and create episodes. And we can look at that code some more. But all of this is to say, this is like a thing that I've been working on a little bit, and I want to continue working on to try to leverage some capabilities, some things I want to do. So like I've been working on taking, let me take a step back. So when I'm streaming this right now, OBS is creating like individual video clips, and I want to be able to like find those clips and then combine them together into a single video record, and then be able to then do some work on the video, like being able to create episodes. That what this action does is it like looks in the audio of the video and it looks for when I take the midstream break, and it like splits the video in two, and it saves the timestamps. Let's put it that way, right? I'm trying to minimize like we're not creating copies of video files and stuff like that. Anyway, that's not actually what I want to start off with today. What I want to start off with today is something actually probably more interesting. But to explain why I want to do that, I need to keep on explaining this a little bit more, I guess. So, one of the things I say that I can do here is I can create episodes. So these are custom actions. The out-of-the-box Django just has delete, selected items, right? And these are custom actions I've added. extract speech, audio, create episodes. So one thing we can do is that from the episodes view, then I have a custom action to assemble audio and create transcription. Right? So that grabs the audio from the timestamps that are indicated for the episode from a video. Like, so this is a record that has like a foreign key, a link to this video, right? So now here's an episode inside of that video. Of course, the video is made up of video clips because that's how I have OBS set up. But anyway, the idea is once you do that custom action, it creates a transcription record. Now, the transcription record by itself doesn't have, it doesn't actually do the transcription yet. These things could be tied together, so like it all just automatically happens rather than having to go through the step-by-step. This, having these things be where I like, okay, now I have a transcription record, and now I can use the custom action to transcribe the audio. That's something that I'm doing now because it makes it much easier to test out the individual pieces and get things working the way I want. So, well, that's great. So we can transcribe audio files. And so I'm using a library on PyPy called Whisper. It's a library by OpenAI that can take an audio file, and it does like a 30-second sliding window kind of scan over the audio file. It does a pretty good job of transcribing the audio. A problem I think I still have right now is that when I run the code locally, like in a Jupyter notebook, it works fine. It takes a minute or two to process, an hour and a half worth of video, which is not too bad. Well, the audio extracted from the video, but it's not too bad, and it gets you, a pretty good looking transcript. It trips up sometimes on like it doesn't know what a daily joule refers to, joule referring to a unit of energy, that sort of thing, right? So it doesn't have all the context, but we could clean that up. But the problem I have right now is I run it inside of Docker. It seems to not ever want to complete. So I need to figure that out. But that's not also what I'm doing now. What I want to do next. This is just more context. So we would have this transcript though, and I do want to make a thing to be able to like review the transcript and correct it. But the other thing I want to have is I want to have something where once we have the transcript, maybe from the episode view, like I don't want to have to write a video description, right? So I thought it would be really cool. Now, honestly, maybe this is not going to work out too great. Maybe this is, not really worth the effort, but I think it's an interesting thing to do, and it will probably be useful for other kinds of situations where you have like automatically extracted information and you want to summarize, and maybe you know where this is going from some of the tags on the stream. I want to take the transcript of the segment for the episode and run it through GPT-4, basically through ChatGPT, and tell it to summarize the transcript into a video description for a YouTube video. So we're almost there to what I want to do next. So to be able to do that, I mean, I could just have like another custom action that'd be like, okay, I'll take the transcript from the episode and then call the OpenAI API to do that and get back a result. But that's not exactly what I want, because I do want it to be more interactive. I want it to be more like ChatGPT, which I've been using a lot. I'm not going to open it because then you'd probably see all my history, so you don't need to see that. But the point though is I want something a little bit more interactive, and I think to do that, what I want to do is I want to introduce a component, a JavaScript front end component, and I may try to interject that into the admin UI. so that we can just have that in place and have like an interactive chat session with GPT where it'll get automatically prompted, and then I can then give it feedback, and then if I like the result that it gives, I do want like a button that I can click in this chat thing that I want to add to this, where it's like, okay, use that as the description, and I'll just inject it right into the description field. So that is the motivation for this next thing. That took a minute. Okay, so that's what I want to eventually accomplish. There is another thing that I want to do. Let's see, how can I explain how I want to get there? So, for working on the front end, probably like we could like the most straightforward way of doing this probably would be to just add a JavaScript file somewhere and write some JavaScript, add it to the template somewhere in the Django project to do all that. But I want to explore a couple other things, and one of those is let's see, I guess we have set up Vite before, because now we're using Vite for Daily Joule. And we are using Mock Service Worker in the context of Storybook. But I want to kind of go through setting up a little project for working on this front end component. And then, and basically, let me think about this. Yeah, I think I want to do, this is what I want to do. So I want to make a front end component wrapped inside of, like, use Vite to set up a little project. Right, so we have React.ts. No, that's not what I want. That's just like a, here we go. Instructions, your first Vite project. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, so I have a folder called Video Processing Tool here. It has the actual Django project and the virtual env for Python. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just do npm create Vite at latest. It's like I've done this before. React SWC. What is SWC again? And do we want that? It's the Rust-based platform for the web. Clearly that's what I used last time. Okay, I see, and I called it client. Let's call it, what are we gonna call this? I mean, I guess this is effectively like this component that we're gonna inject into Django is just like a, it is like a interactive AI, like it is basically a ChatGPT thing. My intent here, though, is not to directly call the OpenAI API from here, because I want to have the API token managed by Django. So probably when we get to that part, the Django app is going to provide an API endpoint, and we'll call it into that from our front end component. And that will handle actually talking to OpenAI. So our API can be, like the API this component is going to call is going to be much simpler. So the problem, as always, is naming things. I'm just going to call this the chatbot. Yeah, go ahead and install that. All right. And it helpfully tells us exactly what to do next steps. So npm install and npm run dev would be the next thing. But this is going to get us a little Vite project with TypeScript and React, because I don't feel like throwing in a different front end framework at the moment. Stick to what I know. And then let's see, let's open that folder. Documents. Video processing tool, chatbot. Yep, I trust myself. All right, so that was a lot to get to. Hey, look, we have a Vite project. Let's see. So hopefully the npm install finished. I'm just gonna run it again. I suspect it might have. Okay, that's fine. npm run dev. And there we go. Success. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a component, and this is going to be like a chat component. Let's call it a chat dialogue. Which has a fun kind of double meaning. And so we're gonna say, how do I want to do this? Function chat dialogue. Support default chat dialogue. Yep. No. It's a good try, Copilot. So yeah, that obviously we'll just show a header and a paragraph, and that is it's a start, right? So what did we get from our template here for Vite? We got a main.tsx that uses React DOM. It creates a root. It finds an element with an ID of root in the document, which would be this HTML file. A few steps down the road, we are going to have to figure out how to bring in the built assets into the Django app, and we'll see how that goes. I've never tried to make a front end React app and then tried to bring it into a Django app like this, because I've not used Django since I think probably the last time I used Django on a project was before React existed. So yeah, it's been a bit. Okay, so I'll keep some stuff here, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna say, hey, chat dialogue. And then we're gonna get rid of the use state because we don't need that anymore. And now we see chat dialogue, chat dialogue. Okay. So let's start with what we know. So one thing I do know is that I'm gonna have a label say a form. In fact, imagine that, a form, and a label of description, and we'll have a text area. Yep. Let's see what yeah, something like that. But describe the video is the placeholder that we don't actually have on the Django admin, but just as kind of representative of here's where we're trying to put the result of our dialogue. Here's a question: is there, and this is something we'll have to figure out when we start trying to integrate the front end, but there is an ID. So let's just imagine here. So we have an ID. There we go. And then, so where I'm going with this is essentially, okay, so the chat dialog will need to know ultimately what the target is. So that's a thing that can be passed in as a prop to our component. And what else? What else do we know that will need to be parameterized for this component when it's actually being used in practice? I guess, we could say that there's also a source, which is also going to be the same thing. This is where the element that contains the text that's used for the prompt. And then, or for the text for the prompt, let's say, right? So, I guess maybe I should step back. If you've not, let's see, images.google.com, let's do it this way. ChatGPT. Is there... Yeah. There we go. So that's what ChatGPT looks like. Just for context, if you've never pulled that up, and this way I don't have to pull up my own. So you have a series of chats, and then you have, in a given chat, there's a text box at the bottom where you can type stuff in, and you can say whatever. But under the hood, there's an API. And I guess there's not a dark mode. So the idea with the API, let's see here, create chat completion, is that the interaction with ChatGPT is essentially a model, what model you're using, whether that's 3.5 or 4, and there's other models too, and then a list of messages. And this list of messages can be annotated with the role the message represents. So I've not looked at exactly what the ChatGPT, like the front end UI, is doing, if you can see how those messages are going back and forth, but we can see in the docs that the role can be system, user, assistant, or function. I've played around with this a little bit in I have a Jupyter notebook somewhere where I was playing around with calling this API and trying things out and testing out, calling these APIs to do summarizations of transcripts. And so you can essentially, create a chat completion here by sending a list of messages. And I think how it's working when you're using the UI for ChatGPT is that some number of the messages that are in this chat history get sent as that chat completion, like in a bundle, right? So that's how it kind of retains some of the information about the chat and maintains context. Presumably at some point it's like, okay, because there's a limited number of tokens that the system will allow you to process at a time. So it's probably, is there a limit to the number of messages? There may not be, but there's definitely a limit to the number of tokens. And in fact, it looks like in the API you can tell the maximum number of tokens to generate in the response. So here's a response. So you can send a list of messages that are essentially giving the context and prompt for the language model, right? And then you get potentially multiple choices, and you'll see this sometimes in the UI too for ChatGPT, where it will come back with multiple, like, which one of these two responses is better, and I think that's what this looks like if you have multiple entries in the choices list. So, right, where was it going with this? So, this component, probably what we're going to do is we're going to want to take, Actually, let me see here. It might be easiest if I find that Jupyter notebook. Should be in the video processing project. Things not open. This file. Is it this transcription test? Yes, I think so. So this is where I was testing Whisper, which is the Python package from OpenAI, and setting up some context. So this is the kind of information that would be coming back from, or it would be coming from the data that's in my Django application, that we would be like using to describe the episode based on the things that I entered when I was loading the video files into the system. And here I'm getting the audio that was extracted from the episode, and here's what that transcript looks like. All right, so doesn't understand when I say a repo. I'm not saying repos, and doesn't understand Daily Joule, but otherwise, I think it's pretty good. In terms of the transcript, and you don't see a bunch of uhs in here either, which is, yeah, see like that? Right, and then I do some text processing, and I try to group things into chunks like that. So like here's a region of time, and here's all the text in that region of time, and then here's me setting up the OpenAI package, loading the API key, and then I print the models here, which isn't too interesting. There's just a bunch of models that are available. And then here is what I was talking about with the chat completion. So here I'm sending, I'm sending this message. Well, messages. I'm making this API call. Here we go. Making this API call through the library, setting the model as GPT-4, and then I'm sending 3 messages. So I'm saying, with role system, this content. So I'm basically what I personally, the human that's talking to you now, think this is doing is that this is telling GPT to be, telling it that it is a robot that a large language model that summarizes the provided video transcript into a title and description, right? To optimize for finding this video on YouTube. Then provide a cleaned up version of the transcript that corrects for any errors in the transcription. So this seems to work, right? So then I say, okay, role system, do this. Role user, so user, talking to that system. Here's the video context, and then here's the transcript. I don't even tell it that this next part is the transcript. I just send a separate message with the text of the transcript, which was what we saw somewhere right here, right? So that just a big long line of text. Thanks again. Take care for now. Until next time. So all of that gets sent to ChatGPT, and we get a response, right? And so here it gives, if I knew when I wrote this what I know now, a thing you can definitely do is tell it to respond in JSON. And then this potentially would actually just be a string containing some JSON, which would be a little bit easier to parse out if we wanted. So you can see it came up with the title, Building a Calories Tracker, which is a short title. But then the description, it's not too bad. We could probably, it carries forward the misunderstanding of the name of the project because that was what was in the transcript. If we had corrected the transcript or asked ChatGPT maybe to use the context to correct for errors in the transcript, maybe that would be good. And then I think this text also has, this actually has the cleaned up transcript, although I think it is doing a little summarization. See, I'm back. So the first part took longer than I anticipated. So this is some of the words from the original transcript from the stream. And I realize this is a bit meta. Just a bit. As I look at the transcript of a previous stream. Anyway. So yeah, so that's kind of what I'm trying to do. But first we need a front-end component to allow us to interact with that. And try to embed that inside of Django. So, where am I going with this? So I think what I want is I want a source, I want a target, and I want a context, and maybe a use case or a basically. What I want is this bit of text here I want to be able to parameterize, right? The job of this chatbot, right? Oh, there we go. I'll call it a job. Translate. We could. But I think I'm just going to copy this whole thing. And I'll put it in here. Turn on word wrapping. So now we have some parameters. So we have a job, we have a source, we have a context. We have a target. Context is data pulled from the video transcript. I guess the source wouldn't be the description, though, would it? Right, because we're not going to have anything initially in the description, and the title is probably not going to be that significant either. It'll just be based on the name of the video file. So let's imagine we pass in the transcript here as well. Yeah, like that. And then I think the other thing that we need here is, because I'm designing this so this component is kind of agnostic to the back end. we don't even have I haven't built the Django like an API yet. But let's imagine that this component is kind of a freestanding thing that we might want to drop into any app. So maybe let's assume that we can at least decide on what the API should look like, but let's not assume that we know where the API is. So let's say API. Yeah, something like that. But probably just something like that will be what we'll do. And so this component can be set up to essentially have all of the information it needs to be able to launch this chat session. And then we'll have a kind of an interactive thing where it's going to show like a pop-up on the screen, you know, like one of those things where you go to a website and it's like, hey, we're here to support you. What questions do you have? That sort of thing is the thing that I'm imagining in my head, but it will be our thing. It'll be something to help me come up with the description based on the transcript. This will mean that in actuality, like this probably, like when I drop this component in the Django app, the job will be hard-coded, but the transcript will be pulled from the database record and just injected. Like this will be inside of a template. Right, somewhere in our Django app, there will be a template that will parameterize the transcript and the context. These things will probably be static in the context of like this use case. Okay, so again, a lot of words, but let's actually make this work here. So let's do interface. Yep, to do. That's right. Job is a string. Transcript is a string. Context is a string. Target is a string. API is a string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there we go. That saved me some typing. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. Props. Chat-like props. And of course we don't actually use those, but that's fine. We'll just do that. And so how is this gonna work? I think how do I want to do this? I think I could make this so that it displayed the job. Like, what do I want to show right here, right? Is a question. I don't think I want to show... How do I want to approach this? Thinking. Like, I don't want to like dump out the transcript or the context or the target or the job. Like, I don't think we need to show any of this information, right? Except, like, when you use ChatGPT, obviously, like, you put in your prompt and your whatever information you're supplying in, and that's like the first chat message. I don't know that we need to do like show that here though. Especially because the transcript might be quite long and it'll be just kind of be in the way. I think it's kind of interesting. So this component definitely has some state that it needs to maintain. Let's talk about that. So these things are all immutable, which is good. Like, we are not going to be changing or allow the user to change what the job is, what the original transcript or context, any of this stuff is, which can get awkward, right? Because you don't want... it's awkward when the data in the props can conflict with the data in the internal state that needs to mutate within the component, because then you have to handle, okay, well, what takes precedence? What happens if props change? Because like the outer, whatever's using this component maybe, you know, has something that allows the user to switch to a different job, and then that sort of thing. So it's good that we don't have to worry about that. I do know that we're going to need a, yeah, we can import that and use state. That's right. And then, yeah, we don't need that. What we do need is we need a, I want to maintain like the chat history, I think. So we'll say messages, set messages. Is this going to be a string array though? Is a question. All right, and I think we don't need to. Oops. I'm glad I have that confirmation. We don't need the other window there, so I'll just go full screen. So, how's this gonna work? I think what I want to do. Actually, let me go back to this API reference. There we go. So when we see the response, we see the role as assistant. So if we want to, I think the way this is supposed to work then is that the next time we send a message, we'll add a message to the array with role user, but we'll also include this message with role assistant to maintain the history of the chat. I'm pretty sure that's how that's supposed to work. So in order to really effectively do that, the state needs to have the ability to represent both sides of the exchange, which means we don't want a string array, because we want to be able to maintain, oh, this was this role or that role. So we're going to add another interface here, chat message. Yeah, something like that. We can actually we can look here at the different roles, and we can just embed that here. Let's see. Or user, or nope. Try again. Assistant. Or nope. Okay, so now we have a chat message type that we can use. And so now we can say our messages here is an array of this chat message type. And the initial value is going to be let's see. So let's split the screen again, and let's look at what I did over here. And can I turn off word wrapping in this view? Notebook cell. Switch slide type. Mark cell. Okay. I don't see a view. Oh, it is Alt-C. Okay. What did I press? I don't know. Okay, so actually, the key here is content instead of text, so I think I'll stick with that. So this will be content, and so we'll say role here is system, and content is the job. Whoops. Comma. Oh yeah. There we go. That's right. And then, I mean, that's not correct. Role user, content is transcript, eventually. But role user, video context, \n, context, comma. Okay, so now this mirrors what I was doing over here. We're not specifying the model. That'll be down to whatever the backend we implement that does that. So now we have our initial messages for our chatbot. And then, how's this going to work? How do we do this? I think the other thing, let me think about this. So I think for now, I might just hard code an index to say this is where we start displaying messages, right? So this is the 0th, 1st, and 2nd message. So we might start with const chat message start index equals, does that work? And then we can say chat messages equals, yeah, like that. Is slice what I want? Returns a copy of a section of an array. Right, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So this will initially be empty, right? Let's go back to the API reference. The message that comes back, it's just role and content. Okay, good. Yeah, so let's do this. So we'll say chat messages, map. There we go, like that. So we'll just create a div for each chat message, and we'll have a paragraph. We can also add a some kind of span, maybe H2 with the role. That's not too bad. Yeah. There are quote-unquote errors, but this should be fine. And then we can save that now. And let's see, if we go back to a browser, and okay, and we don't have anything here, as expected. So the next thing we can do is have a place to add another chat message, so like to send a message, right? So hey, look, it's already done that for us, almost, except for closing the form. We don't need an ID. Probably only need 2 rows here. So if we save that, we can enter something and click send. We should, let's see. Yeah, there we go. We could use onSubmit. Huh, you know, let's think about that for a minute. If we use onSubmit on this form, we could call fetch. We could post a thing. I'm not actually going to leave the code in here, but just kind of, would you be surprised to know that I don't have a plan? I have a vague idea of what I want to accomplish, and then I just figured I'd, fly by the seat of my pants until something was done. But this is interesting. Hey, Brainless, how's it going? How's your Sunday been? Oh no, sick. But getting better. I'm glad to hear that. Who wants to be sick on a weekend? It's such a waste. Did you get an extra hour of sleep? Preparing your work laptop to do some work. I see. You slept yesterday the entire day and night? So I'm guessing I guess the extra hour didn't do much for you compared to all that then. But that sounds terrible though. You're sick on the weekend and getting ready to do some work on a Sunday? Yeah. At least in Yep. Yeah, you must not be in the crowd that changes their time on the morning of the 5th. That's right, it's different. Months ago? Yeah. Yeah, it's different. Other places, I know there was like a week, right, between, or a couple weeks. There's somewhere, I think that was in Europe, that changed the clock earlier, and so there was a period where all the schedules were messed up. You now begin working at 12. Yeah. So does this Copilot code that it's suggesting? Again, I'm not going to leave it here. I'll move it to a separate function. But I think in principle, this idea of like on submit, we'll do a fetch to an endpoint wherever that lives, and then we can set messages to add the new message. It'll be more complicated than this, right? Because we need to we'll just take whatever the response is and replace messages with the new thing. You stop paying for Copilot and configure Codium? I'll have to check that out. Oh, and there went the preview. Let's see. Mute tab. Okay, yeah, Codium.com. I'll check it out. I'm now paying for both Copilot and for ChatGPT. But ChatGPT, outside of like coding, has been really great, or at least I feel it's been really great for. I've been resurrecting an idea for a sci-fi book from like a decade ago that I had started working on. Like I'd done a bunch of like world building and, well, not a bunch, but some world, like philosophical, like who the people are and what they're trying to achieve, and some background stuff. And then I've just been like throwing that at GPT-4 over and over again. It's been really fun, actually, but nothing to do with coding. Although I did use it to kind of sketch out some ideas for the Django project for kind of managing the video files, and because initially I was trying to figure out how I was going to automate. So I started using DaVinci Resolve to do like video editing, but it's very repetitive. Like I'm just doing the same thing where I'm trying to find where the break midstream is, and then cut, and then add transitions at the beginning and the end, and it's very samey, especially setting up all the settings for like uploading to YouTube and all that. And it's not a lot of time, but it's really repetitive. And there are ways of automating it, but it's not really well documented. But ChatGPT had some things that seemed to bear out in terms of, I did actually find a little bit of documentation that demonstrated that it wasn't hallucinating everything. And and so that kind of snowballed into like this whole Django app to kind of do the automation prior to launching the video editor, and then like creating a project XML file and importing it, and then allowing that to do a lot of the work. And now we're here. So, yeah. What was I doing? Oh, yeah. So, let's say on submit, we do something. And again, I'm not going to do this, but what I want to do is I want to call a function, and that function needs to have the API, and it needs to have the messages. So what we can do, let's just make a function here. Call it function send messages, honestly. And this is going to return a promise of a chat message array. And it's going to take API string messages that. This is going to be an async function, I've decided. And yeah, that I think moves us forward, right? And so then on submit looks like send messages. Sync function. Or do I want an arrow function? Let's do an arrow function. const result equals send messages. Except we don't want to actually append. Like, the assumption is going to be that result is going to contain all of the original messages. Did I forget the use of await? I did. I could, of course, also have done send messages dot then and just passed set messages. But that's fine. Okay. So now we're using everything except for target. Target will come in. We're going to want to have a thing where this is going to be like button to send contents of message to target element value. That's presuming the target here is like the ID of an element that's like a text area, like the description field here. Use. Yeah, target element here is specifically a text area. I don't know, HTML text area element. Or null. Okay. Just take my word for it. Okay. And then, so we could call fetch, do a post to the API. We'll send the messages as the body. We await a response, which will be an array of messages. And that'll be the API. Again, the context for this is that we're going to have our own backend that's running along, like the front end will be tied to a web app, a Django backend that's going to provide this endpoint that we're passing into the component. So that's under our control. And presumably, like, the user that's seeing this has some kind of session, is authenticated. In this case, we're talking about we're in the Django admin. It's behind access, so that this API call is also protected, so that we're not allowing the whole world to use up the you have to pay for API access for this. So I'm not making a service for the world to use my money. If I ever actually put this on a website, where will it be accessible? Right now it's just running, it's running inside of Docker locally. So hopefully no one can get to that but me. All right, so yeah, now, okay, so that gets us to the point where we can, oh, interesting, yeah, change the URL, because that's how that worked. Did we add a prevent default? We should do that. Event.prevent defaults. Deprecated. Is it like that then? So if I send a test message, that fails, unsurprisingly, because here, let's make this a little bit easier to see what's going on. And yeah, so there's no such API chat endpoint being served up here, so that's going to fail, which is expected. So How do we like continue working on this front end without having a back end? Well, now I can finally get to the one of the other things I wanted to kind of explore today, which was setting up mock service worker for an app to simulate a back end, and being able to like exercise the front end without having the back end, and then potentially look at like how you would then disable that from your front end build to actually have it call a back end. All of that, right? So I just have the getting started guide from mock service worker, and I'm just going to do what it tells me. There we go. And write the network behavior. So we want to intercept a request. Is that really all we need to do? I suspect it's not. Let's see here. Getting started. Install. Write network behavior. Integrate anywhere. So browser. Here we go. More steps. So npx, msw, init. Do we have a public dir? And we do. So, initializing mock service worker in our public directory. Service worker successfully created. Mock service worker.js. Continue by creating a mocking definition module in your application. Getting started mocks, right? That would be. Interesting. Let's click that link. Where does that take us? Oh, it just takes us back there. Okay, cool. We were in the right place. In order to ease the future updates to the worker script, we recommend saving the path to the worker directory in your package.json. Sure, go ahead. All right. So, if we, let's see, if we zoom out a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit easier to deal with. Let me refresh. Okay, and I think there's something we need to do to make the. So we have the mock service worker in the public folder, but I think there's something else we need to do, probably in the index.html to add this, or. So the downside of, like, I'm pretty sure what we could do is add a line here referring to the mock service worker. Oh, what am I working on? Yeah, let's do a recap. So, I am broadly working on a Django application that's going to help me take all of the VODs that I like all the local recordings I do of streams like this one, and automatically identify like the sections where stuff is actually happening. So like, you know, there's the period of time when the stream is starting up before I start talking, to the break, after the break, to the end. Identify those as episodes, automatically transcribe those, and then send the transcript and some prompt engineering stuff to ChatGPT to automatically summarize the episodes to go into the description of the video on YouTube. So broadly, that's what's going on. Some of that's already done, like the Django project setup and the extraction of the audio from the video files is done. I have some issues that I'm trying to work through with getting the actual transcription to work inside of Docker. It doesn't. It seems to want to work outside of Docker, but not inside. Mixed feelings about Django. There was a time I was a fan of it. Yeah, I've not used Django. This is the first time I've really set up a Django project. And honestly, it's coming up on a decade, I think. Really. But it was like, oh, this would be an easy way for me to have a CRUD UI, like using the Django admin. Yeah, the microservice approach. Yeah. At some point, like what we could do is we could, like, this is more of a, it's not something I've used in a while. I was kind of curious how it was, and it seems basically the same like as it was 10 years ago, which is kind of nice in its own way. Seemed pretty, not a lot of churn versus some other things. Of course, now what I'm doing is I'm building this front end component to theoretically inject into the Django admin to extend it. In the short term, this will be okay. If I keep on thinking of more things to like add to this, or there may come a point where it won't make sense to use Django anymore. This is kind of a like once we wow, hey. Thank you for the follow, November 1313. So I'm thinking though that like this front end component is not going to take much longer. I do want to kind of switch over and look at the Django stuff again to see where it's at. When we do look at that, it's probably going to be you'll see there's not a lot to it. There's some Python code there that's calling out to FFmpeg. There's some stuff that's calling the Whisper package. It is definitely something that this was kind of the easiest way I could think of to get started. But I agree, especially if I wanted to turn this into an actual service. Like, I don't have any plans right now of doing like what I'm doing with Daily Jewel, where I actually put it online and maybe some point have other people use it. Hey, Arn4VV, what am I building with FFmpeg and Whisper? Well, I think let me just go over to that that project. So the ultimate goal with FFmpeg and Whisper, let's see if I can find the code there. So is it in Video App? So this is the Django project, and I have a couple of different apps to kind of keep the stuff separated. And so I have a set of tasks here for Celery, which is kind of like an asynchronous worker, like a synchronous task thing. Where am I using? So symbol audio from clips. Yeah, here. So here's where I'm shelling out. I'm using the subprocess to call FFmpeg. It's configured in the settings rather than hard coding it. So settings, step by. Should just be FFmpeg. There we go. Right, so it's just running inside of a Docker container. And then I'm just, let's see, what am I doing first? So I am, I have a bunch of video files. Is that what's going on here? Clip, concat list, default storage, clip, symbol audio for list of video clips. So this is looking for a specific audio track because this recording, like this stream right now, I'm also recording it locally, and I typically record in like 4 different audio tracks. So I have one that's like the mixture of all the audio, so like what you're hearing right now, and then I have a separate track for just my voice, a track for the background music from Pretzel, and like if I'm playing a game, it'll be like the sound from the game. So I have this set up to grab a specified audio track from the list of videos, and then it dumps it into a temporary file. Well, not really temporary. It gets saved, but into a file in the wherever it's storing files inside of a mapped volume from the Docker container. And so FFmpeg does that. So it basically finds all of the like 20-minute video clips and it grabs all the audio from them in a section. So like start to end, because you did a site for VOD where one of the microservices used FFmpeg to transcode the video into multiple quality, maybe like quality levels. I'm not sure what chunch means, which later were picked up by another microservice which uploaded the S3 for consumption by the UI. Nice. Yeah. I might, like, I could see doing some, actually, let's see here. I have a list of things somewhere. There we go. So this is what we're working on this stream, is building a front-end component like ChatGPT that has a use result button to copy the results to a target element, calls backend APIs, and use a mock service worker to test the front end. So that's kind of what I wanted to do today. And then I have a bunch of other things. So some are like, okay, well, the model, the topic, like I'm doing a coding stream, so all the videos about coding streams will have that topic of coding stream. There will be like a template for titles. And then episode model uses title template for new records. Add a summary action to the episode model that uses this component. Yada, yada, yada. And one of the things that touches on what you just said, Brainless, about sending stuff to S3 is I was thinking, you know, I have three. I have three NVMe, 2 terabyte drives on my motherboard, and 2 of them are striped together for, you know, really speedy reads for like doing video editing. But those are eventually going to run out of space. So I probably at some point I'm going to sort out a solution for like archiving those videos. And I was thinking that would be something that I could bring into this project as well for like archival. For at least right now, for like previewing, it's all local, right? So I can just serve it directly off disk to the UI if I want to like preview it. Some of that ends up, my intention though is for the actual video editing to still do that in DaVinci Resolve, but to basically use this software to prep like a project like XML that can be imported in there, and then automate all of the video edits that I typically do, which is not a lot, but maybe more if it's easier to do from that point. Okay, so that's some more context. We all like context, right? But specifically for mock service worker, I could add a thing here to point to the service worker. In fact, I don't know if the docs it talks about doing that. So let's see, integrate into browser. We run this command that adds mock service worker.js. No worries. I'm gonna keep going, but if I say something that's like you missed the part where I explained the context around it, feel free to ask questions. The more questions, the better, because otherwise I'm just gonna like run through things and maybe no one will have any idea what I'm talking about. Specifically right now though, in order to be able to like, because I haven't built an API for our little chat dialogue to talk to, and I don't want it to talk to the OpenAI API directly. But so I do want to build like a API in between for that. I don't want to build that yet though, and I'm just looking for an excuse to play around more with mock service worker. I'm I think this is the next step, though, is to probably import setup worker and do this in SOC. We could do like in like a mox.ts or something. Or I could make a folder in SOC called mox, and then browser.ts, let's say. But yeah, let me read that message. But I'm actually working on something right now that's similar. It transcribes podcasts using Whisper, gives it to GPT 3.5 Turbo to extract clips, interesting bits, and then generates a video for each clip. Yeah, that's actually really similar. So I'm using FFmpeg to really, because I already have clips. They're just not clips based on anything interesting. They're just 20-minute chunks. So I need to like assemble everything together. Then the part that isn't really encoded, I guess it is. So let's see here. So right. So here we go. So this was right. Identify episodes. So this uses librosa to take an audio file. So this will be the audio file of the whole stream. So this will be like a 3-hour long audio file. And then it is looking for a period of at least 60 seconds. Now that time wouldn't necessarily make sense for a podcast. And I'm not sure, like, this approach wouldn't necessarily make sense for a podcast if you're looking for like interesting bits. This is more about looking for like when I've taken a break and I'm not talking. But that's what this does. It's looking at splitting based on decibel level into segments, and then it's grouping the segments together so that it finds quote unquote episodes. Now maybe you could use this at a with a different threshold to find where people are talking the most to like focus attention. And then I have another, here we go, in transcription.py. So this is where I'm using Whisper to, with the tiny.en model to transcribe the audio. So we have an audio file. So this will be an episode's audio. So this will be like an hour and a half of audio-ish. And then I have a title and description, so I can give an initial prompt to the transcribe method. And then I look at the segments, and I essentially group segments together so that they are, what am I doing here? Into 30-second chunks. That could also be parameterized. I didn't. So now we have like chunks of the transcript for like 30-second segments of this hour and a half long video. Yeah. So, and this seems to, like, the code under this seems to work. The issue is that running this inside of Docker seems to not want to work. Probably because I'm doing the wrong things in the setup here, or there's something about Docker, right? So I tried to like give it GPU access because Whisper can use GPU, and it's still like the console output inside of Docker looks the same as when I'm running it inside of a Jupyter notebook, but whereas like this processing of this one was like 47 minutes, but a long video, the audio of it, it's still it only takes a couple of minutes here, but in Docker it runs for like an hour and it still doesn't finish. So that's kind of where that's stuck right now that I need to figure out. But we'll come back to that. So if I were to just do this, right? We'll also make a handlers file. Handlers.ts to do. Import handlers from handlers. How's that supposed to work? Huh. What if I did import star as handlers from handlers? Is not a module. Export. I could do that. Or I could do... Yeah, I guess I'll do that. And I'll go back to the way it was before. There we go. Faster whisper. Yeah, I'll... CPU inference is extremely slow. That's probably the reason it's slow in Docker. Yeah, I suspect so. Although I thought the thing that I had done would make it so that it could use GPU, but perhaps not. But let's see, faster whisperer with ctranslate 2. Huh, up to 4 times faster. So this is what I'm looking at. Up to 4 times faster than OpenAI Whisper for the same accuracy, using less memory, which would probably be nice. We could potentially try this out. Maybe after the break. So, yeah, definitely. So I will be, as is tradition, I do these streams. I stream 4 days a week. Right now, it's only these Sunday streams that are coding streams. The other streams are more like playing video games. But I typically stream 4 days a week, and each stream is about 3 hours right now. And I take a break about halfway in for a few minutes so I can get some water and stretch my legs and that sort of thing. So that'll be probably do that here in a minute. I would like to, let's see, what does this do? You ended up using a Simply AI's API for the transcription, which is extremely fast. Probably look into, if you wanted to self-host, you'd probably look into doing that on Replicate, or Model Labs as a separate service. Yeah, I decided, well, I initially decided that I wanted to do the transcription without using any external services, and then after that, I decided that I wanted to. I'm just using it in Docker because this is a Windows machine, because that makes it easier for like doing gaming and stuff, and doing like running a bunch of different services on Windows is not something I'm interested in doing. So that's why I'm running in Docker. Yeah, I know, right? Maybe I'll switch to Linux at some point, but I think what I need to do is to have like a separate a second desktop if I really want to do that, and have one that's like I mean, I could use a virtual machine. I could use a VM. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, it is what it is. But that's why I'm like everything is in Docker. It's just to make it easier to deal with. I do want to look at doing this. Yeah, I'm just gonna take this, and we're gonna go over to here. Yeah, how do you let's see, Vite process env. You usually just run Postgres, Redis, etc. in Docker, and then run the backend, front end, outside of Docker. Yeah. Typically what I'll do is I'll have things set up in Docker Compose to map the file structure directly into the container, but the container is still defined. So it's set up so it could be like deployed and run. It still is not great. It can cause problems with like reloading. So yeah. Okay. So one of the things that I'm going to need to figure out is how I want to actually manage this chat dialogue when I'm importing it into Django. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of assumed with the setup of using Vite that are not going to work quite right. I might end up just taking the component and like lifting it, like just copying it into the other project and adding some separate build process, or I don't know. I don't know. I have not figured that out yet. What I do know is I want to be able to, so Vite exposes env variables on the special import.meta.env object. Mode. So if dev, right, so this is what I'm looking for. Okay, I need more screen. So defer is defined, but it's never used. It's declared, but it's never, yeah, okay. Defer render, then do the thing. Do I, oh right, I probably don't have any kind of formatting. No, why would I have that? It's funny the things you just kind of get used to having. Let's see, npm I save dev prettier. There it is. What am I doing wrong here? Why is it unhappy? I don't have a pretty RC file. Can I just see that? Okay, that seems to work. All right. So cool. So that should be okay. Now if we go back to the project and reload, so we should see, yeah, MSW browser. If we go over to the application tab, there is a service worker. So that's all there. And mocking is enabled. So this is still going to fail. Yeah, 404 not found. We can see it intercepted a request, but there was no matching handler. So now we need to add a handler. So we have a handlers file. And, weird. Okay, so rest that post might actually be a thing. API chat. I suspect it's not a thing. Let's go back to the docs here. Yeah, got our confirmation, mocking enabled. And mocking intercepting requests. Oh, hey, thanks for the follow. It's really appreciated. We're almost to the goal of 50 followers, which is going to be amazing in terms of getting that affiliate status and having like channel points and subs and all that stuff. I think I'll import both of those. So is it just like http.post and then I think I'll just return an empty list. What am I missing here? Return res. Right. Yeah, all of those things are... can I just do underscore to stop the complaining? Or what is the problem here? Type is not assignable to parameter of type. Expected 3 or more will go. Hold on. So what is the type of post? Yeah, that's type, all right. Resolver. Okay. So instead of instead of allowing this to tell me what I'm supposed to do, I should just look at the documentation. Let's see here. Resolver, user resolver. HTTP request matching. Oh, I see. This is different than the what I'm used to from whatever version of mock service worker we have inside of Storybook for Daily Jewel. So let's see. This returns .json. Cool. That's a little bit more straightforward. So does that mean now that if I go over here and I put it in test and send it, it got intercepted by mock service worker and there was not a console error? And so what I don't see is some other things that I'm expecting. So what we should see when we submit is we set messages based on the result. So if I look at the network tab and I look at chat, we get a response of an empty array. I guess that is what I would expect. Let's expand on the handlers. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add role test content test, right? So now it reloads. I'll just put a 1 here. And what I was expecting to see was a little bit of text here that said, like a heading test, content test. Did we get that response? We did. So why doesn't it work? Body, result, JSON, response is what we're returning from send messages. We're awaiting send messages, and we're setting the messages to the, oh, right. Right, so we have this set up to ignore the first 3 messages in the array of messages because they're just like the setup for the prompt and what the system is and doing and stuff. So what we need to do in the handler is get the request, I think. And let's go back to here. Can we look at the body of the request as JSON? Requests, concepts, request handler. Using, describing. Okay. Okay, let's look at request. What do we have here? We have a body. We have a JSON. So I think potentially we could do, whoops. Can we do dot JSON? Oh, this is a promise. Okay, cool. So let's say const request messages equals await that. This needs to be an async function now. Hopefully we can, that is allowed to be an async function. That's good. And then dot request messages. Body default type. What is a body default type? Promise body type. extends body default type is, it could be anything, sure, but it is, it's an any array. Yeah, I know you don't like that, but I don't care. I don't care that you don't like it. I guess it can be unknown. As unknown. There. Now that shuts up TypeScript. So this will take the original messages that were sent and then add a new message onto the end of it. We can give this a real role. So assistant will say testing. There we go. And let that reload. And it is just about time for that break. And when I get back, I guess I'll figure out why... Are we not posting the messages? Oh, we aren't. Okay. That would be a problem. Body stringify messages. Send messages. Chat message. Right, it's empty because... oh, right. So this shouldn't be chat messages. This should just be messages. Right? Because we want to send all the messages. We just want to not display the first three to keep the UI simpler, right? Because it's assumed kind of the context of what we're trying to do, maybe. So I'm going to test that when I come back from my break.